With someone who believes in something, customers want to buy from brands that stand for something, teams want to follow, leaders who fight for something. You don't need to scream to be heard when your why is clear. People lean in, they want to be part of it. But this only works if it's real. You can't fake purpose. People can sense authenticity. They can also sense when it's missing. So don't look for the perfect answer. Don't craft a why that sounds impressive but doesn't feel true. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Start with what matters most to you. Start small, but start real. There's a reason the best companies, the best leaders, and the most fulfilled people all have a strong sense of why. It's because purpose fuels endurance. It creates alignment. It simplifies decisions, it builds culture, it connects people, and most importantly, it creates meaning. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of success if it doesn't feel meaningful? What's the point of achievement if you've lost yourself in the process? We are not here just to make a living, we're here to make a difference. And that difference starts when we stop living by default and start living by design. When we stop chasing approval and start following purpose. When we stop asking, what can I get, and start asking, what can I give? If you take only one thing away from this, let it be this. Before you do anything else, build the business, write the book, take the job, make the move. Start by getting clear on your why. Because the how will change, the what will evolve, but your why, your purpose, that's your anchor. That's your foundation. That's what keeps you grounded when the world gets noisy. And once you find it, live it, speak it, share it, build around it, let it guide every choice you make. Because in a world full of noise, the clearest voice will always be the one that speaks from purpose. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, the one that knows why it speaks at all. We often think of leadership as a position, a title, a rank, a place on the organizational chart. But leadership has nothing to do with authority. It has everything to do with responsibility. True leaders are not the ones who demand to be followed. They are the ones who choose to serve first. It's easy to assume that leadership begins when you have a team under you, when people report to you, when you're the one giving direction. But real leadership starts long before that. It begins with a decision to show up, not to be important, but to make others feel important. A decision to put your ego aside and your people first. Serving before leading is not just a nice idea, it's a requirement for real, lasting leadership. Because people don't follow titles, they follow trust. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the moment people feel they are being used as a means to an end, they stop giving you their best. Think about the people in your life who made the biggest difference. A teacher, a coach, a boss, maybe even a friend. The people who truly impacted you, I guarantee they weren't just efficient. They weren't just smart. They weren't just in charge. They cared. Is the soil in which trust grows. And trust is the currency of leadership. Without it, nothing you say matters. Without it, no strategy, no mission, no objective will ever land the way you want it to. But with it, with real, earned trust, people will run through walls with you, not because they have to, but because they want to. There's a fundamental shift that happens when you see yourself as a servant first. It changes your posture. You stop asking, what can I get out of this? And start asking, what do others need from me? You stop guarding your position and start lifting people up. You stop trying to prove you're the smartest in the room and start creating a room where everyone gets to contribute their brilliance. So that's the difference between power and leadership. Power is about control. Leadership is about care. Power puts people in their place. Leadership brings people to their potential. And that happens not through dominance, but through service. Now here's the hard part. Serving others is rarely convenient. It often requires sacrifice. It means putting in extra time. It means having the tough conversations with grace. It means staying calm when others panic, staying kind when others are cold. It means showing up for people even when you're tired, even when no one sees it. That's the cost of service. That's the cost of leadership. There's also a reward, a kind that goes beyond titles and performance reviews. When you lead with service, you get to see people grow because of your presence. You get to see confidence rise in someone who didn't believe in themselves. You get to see someone take a risk, push past fear, and win, and know that maybe, just maybe, your belief in them helped them get there. That is the most fulfilling part of leadership, knowing you helped someone else win, not for your benefit, but for theirs. And when you serve people with that kind of heart, something amazing happens. They start to lead too, because service is contagious. When you show up with humility and generosity, others are inspired to do the same. You create a culture where people take care of each other, not because they have to, but because that's just who they are. And suddenly, leadership is no longer about one person at the top making all the calls. It becomes something shared, a responsibility everyone embraces, not because of a policy or a handbook, but because of the example that was set. Service doesn't mean weakness. It's not passive. It doesn't mean you avoid hard decisions or hold back on accountability. In fact, some of the greatest acts of service are the hardest. Being honest when it would be easier to say nothing. Holding a standard when it would be easier to let things slide. Encouraging someone when they've lost faith in themselves. These things take courage, they take strength, but they are acts of service nonetheless. Too many leaders miss this. They try to control instead of empower, they focus on being impressive instead of being impactful. But control never builds loyalty. Impressiveness never creates connection. Only service does. When you lead from service, people will remember you.
Not because of how important you were, but because of how you made them feel important. Not because of the results you delivered, but because of the respect you gave. Not because of your ideas, but because you made space for theirs. That's the kind of leader people follow for life. That's the kind of leader who creates lasting impact. Because at the end of the day, people will forget the metrics, they'll forget the presentations, they'll forget the quarterly results, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And if you made them feel seen, valued, empowered, that's leadership. That's success. So if you want to lead, truly lead, start with service. Ask yourself every day, who am I helping grow? What am I doing to make someone else's life easier? How can I use my influence to build people up, not break them down? Because the best leaders don't build empires, they build people. They don't take credit, they give trust. They don't just climb to the top, they bring others with them. And that starts by serving, not because it's strategic, but because it's right. Not because it makes you look good, but because it makes others feel great. That's the real win. That's leadership. That's the kind of success worth chasing. We love intensity. It's exciting, it's loud, it grabs attention, it makes great headlines. Intensity feels like action, like progress. It's the big launch, the all-nighter, the passionate sprint toward a goal. But here's the truth, most people don't want to hear. Intensity might get you started, but it's consistency that gets you results. The world glorifies the big moment, the dramatic gesture, the viral success story. But success, real success, doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from what you choose to do every single day when no one's watching. It's not the impressive start that matters most, it's the boring, steady, faithful continuation, the recs, the rhythm, the routine. Anyone can be intense for a day. Show me someone who can be consistent for a decade. That's a person who's going to change the world. We've all been there, fired up at the beginning of something new. The first day in the gym, the first week on a new project, the first moment when the dream feels fresh and alive. We dive in head first, we give it everything, and then life happens. Motivation fades, distractions creep in, the urgency dies down, and without a system, without a rhythm, without consistency, it all falls apart. Intensity makes a splash, but consistency builds something that lasts. There's a story I love about two people who decide to write a book. One says, "I'll write when I feel inspired, when the moment strikes." The other says, "I'll write for 30 minutes every morning before work, no matter what." One person writes when they're in the mood, the other writes no matter the mood. Guess who finishes the book? We wait for motivation, we wait for the perfect time, but success isn't about waiting, it's about showing up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. Because the people who change the game aren't the ones that do it all at once, they're the ones who do it again and again and again. It's the leader who keeps showing up for their team when no one's watching, the athlete who trains on the days they feel tired, the writer who types out one more paragraph when they're not sure it's any good, the parent who shows up for their kid's game after a long day of work. These aren't grand gestures, these are small, deliberate acts, but over time, they compound. They build trust, they build character, they build results, and they build people. Here's the danger of chasing intensity. It can become addictive. We start to associate value only with what feels dramatic. If it doesn't feel like a breakthrough, we think it doesn't count. But the truth is, consistency is dramatic in the long run. It's just quiet. It's unglamorous, it rarely makes noise, but it's working under the surface, day after day. Think of a tree. It doesn't grow because of one sunny day. It grows because of steady exposure to sun, water, time, and care. That's how roots go deep. That's how growth becomes sustainable. And that's exactly how success works. So if you're tired of starting over, stop relying on bursts of effort. Build habits instead. Build systems. Build a rhythm so steady that even on your worst day, you're still moving forward, even if it's just 1 inch. And I know what some people are thinking, but what if I fall off track? What if I miss a day? That's okay, you're human. This isn't about perfection, this is about persistence. The goal isn't to never miss, goal is to never quit. Because consistency is a decision you renew not once, but constantly. And the quicker you return to the habit, the stronger you become. People often ask me, how do I stay motivated? But motivation isn't what sustains you. Discipline does. Purpose does. When you remember your why, it becomes easier to keep going. Not because you feel like it, but because you believe in it. And sometimes your why is what turns the mundane into the meaningful. Suddenly, writing that email, making that call, showing up early, staying a bit later, it's not just busy work, it's part of something bigger. It's connected to the impact you want to have. Consistency doesn't mean you never evolve. In fact, the most consistent people are constantly learning, but they don't flail around chasing the next big thing. They build on what's working, they refine it, improve it, but they keep showing up. Think of the leaders you admire, the ones people trust, the ones people rely on. It's not because they're the loudest or flashiest, it's because they're reliable, consistent. You know who they are, what they stand for, and how they'll show up. That's not accidental, that's built day by day. The same applies to businesses, teams, families, relationships. It's not one grand vacation that makes a great marriage, it's daily connection. It's the little things, the check-ins, the acts of service, the moments of attention. In everything that truly matters, consistency beats intensity every single time. There's nothing wrong with moments of intensity. They're powerful. They can be the spark. But don't mistake the spark for the fire. The fire comes from steady fuel, from showing up even when it's not exciting, especially when it's not exciting. So if you're dreaming big, good, dream. Set the vision, but don't rely on adrenaline to get you there. Build the daily habits, lay the bricks.
Be okay with slow progress. Be patient with the process, because one day someone will look at what you've built and say, wow, how did you do all that? And you'll smile because you'll know the truth. You didn't do it all at once. You did it every single day, a little at a time, with consistency, with heart, with purpose. And that is how ultimate success is built, not in flashes, but in rhythms. There's a version of strength we've all been sold, one where leaders never flinch, never falter, and certainly never show weakness. We're taught to wear masks, build walls, and power through. But here's the paradox. Real strength doesn't come from pretending we have it all together. It comes from the courage to admit when we don't. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's honesty. It's the courage to show up as you are, not as the polished version you think the world expects, but the real you, the human you, the one who has doubts, fears, dreams, and flaws. And the reason that matters so much is simple. People can't connect with perfection, they connect with truth. We've all had moments where we tried to keep it together, to project strength while falling apart inside. You think if we open up, people will lose respect. But the opposite is true. When a leader is willing to say, I don't know, I'm struggling, or I made a mistake, it doesn't diminish their authority. It earns trust because it reminds everyone else that it's okay to be human too. Trust doesn't grow in the absence of vulnerability. It grows because of it. It grows in the moments when someone says, I need help, or I don't have this figured out, or I'm scared, but I'm still showing up. These aren't admissions of weakness, they're signs of tremendous bravery. Think about the people you feel closest to, the ones you really trust. I bet it's not because they're always the smartest in the room or because they never mess up. It's because they're real with you. They're open. They've let you see behind the curtain. And in doing that, they've invited you to be real too. Vulnerability is the gateway to connection. It's how teams become families, how leaders become role models, how coworkers become allies. And it's the one thing every great culture has in common, a willingness to be honest even when it's uncomfortable. But let's be clear, vulnerability isn't dumping emotions on everyone around you. It's not about dramatics or self-pity. It's about intentional honesty. It's about choosing to be open when hiding would be easier. It's about saying the hard thing, not for attention, but for growth. It's about showing up even when there's a risk of rejection or judgment, because the relationship, the mission, or the truth matters more than your pride. That's what makes it courageous. You see, we're wired for connection. We want to belong, but belonging doesn't happen through performance. It happens through honesty. And yet so many people live with a mask on because they believe it's safer. But safety isn't in hiding, it's in being seen. The irony is, the more we hide the parts we fear, the more disconnected we become from the very people we want to be close to. Real leadership isn't about being above people, it's about being with them, walking alongside them, and nothing builds trust. That kind of relationship faster than vulnerability. When a leader says, I need your input. They empower others when a team member says, I don't know how to do this, but I want to learn. They invite mentorship when someone says, I'm scared, but I'm here. They remind everyone that fear and bravery are not opposites, they coexist. And the beautiful thing is, vulnerability inspires vulnerability. When someone opens up first, they give others permission to do the same. It lowers the armor, it deepens trust, it creates a culture where people don't have to fake it to fit in. And that's where creativity, collaboration, and innovation actually flourish, not in fear-based environments, but in safe, honest ones. And we've seen this play out in every industry. The best teams aren't the ones that never make mistakes. They're the ones who can talk about mistakes openly. The best relationships aren't perfect, they're real. And the most respected leaders aren't the ones who seem untouchable. They're the ones who lead from their humanity. Now, here's the challenge. Vulnerability is rarely convenient. It often shows up when we least expect it, in a difficult conversation, in a moment of failure, in a room where everyone else seems confident and we feel completely unsure. But it's exactly in those moments that your choice matters most. You can either armor up, pretend, deflect, shut down, or you can lean in, tell the truth, ask for help, take the risk. It's not always obvious. Sometimes vulnerability looks like saying, I'm not okay. Other times it looks like asking for feedback. Sometimes it's owning a mistake. Sometimes it's just being present without having to fix or solve, but simply to feel. Every time you choose that kind of courage, you build something stronger than reputation. You build relationship. And the truth is, vulnerability doesn't just make you a better leader, it makes you a better human. It deepens your empathy, it sharpens your awareness, it teaches you to listen, not just to words, but to people's hearts. And that's the kind of leadership that lasts, the kind people remember. Because at the end of the day, people won't remember the perfect speech you gave or how flawless your strategy looked. They'll remember how you made them feel, whether they felt safe to speak up, whether they felt seen, whether they felt like they mattered. That's the legacy vulnerability builds. So if you want to lead well, not just with power, but with purpose, let go of the need to have all the answers. Let go of the pressure to be invincible, and pick up something much more powerful, the willingness to be real. That's where transformation begins. Not in pretending, not in performing, but in truth. You lead from what it truly means to be human. And in that space where honesty meets courage, the real work, the meaningful work, can finally begin. We're taught from an early age to chase success, to set goals, hustle hard, compete, and climb. And there's nothing wrong with being ambitious. But somewhere along the way, many of us start confusing success with purpose. We turn the outcome into the objective. We make winning the goal. But real fulfillment doesn't come from chasing success. It comes when success chases you as a byproduct. Meaningful success is not the goal. It's what happens because you stay true to your values, because you chose to lead with integrity, because you poured yourself into something that mattered, not just to you, but to others. The problem is, when success becomes the goal, we start compromising, we cut corners, we measure worth by metrics, we start living for the applause instead of the impact. And the danger there isn't just burnout, it's disconnection. Disconnection from why we started in the first place. Think about the great leaders, the visionaries, the ones we truly admire. They weren't driven by success, at least not the way the world defines it. They were driven by a cause, a belief, a conviction, and because they poured themselves into that, success followed. But here's the thing, they weren't chasing it, they were building something bigger than themselves. When you're obsessed with success, you start asking, how fast can I get there? But when you're focused on purpose, the question changes. You ask, what's the right thing to build? Who can I serve? What's the legacy I want to leave? One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, how do I become successful? And start asking, how do I become useful? Because when your life becomes about service, contribution, growth, success becomes inevitable. It's easy to get addicted to the external titles, income, recognition, likes, followers. They're loud, but they're also fleeting. The internal wins are quieter, knowing you acted with integrity, knowing you lifted someone up, knowing you did the hard thing when no one else saw. That's the stuff that builds a life. That's the stuff that lasts. There's nothing wrong with wanting results, but when you make the result the purpose, you miss the process that creates real impact. The leaders who make the biggest difference aren't fixated on being the best. They're committed to getting better, not once, not temporarily. That mindset of growth over glory changes everything. Because when things get hard, and they always do, if success was your only motivation, you'll quit. But if purpose is your driver, you'll persist, because you're not just chasing a finish line, you're building something real here. Here's what most people don't see. Success is not a moment, it's not a milestone, it's not the photo on the stage or the line on the resume. It's a lifestyle, a pattern, a way of thinking and living. It's in how you show up every day, not just in how you perform once. It's in the extra effort you give when no one's watching. It's in the humility to keep learning. It's in the resilience to keep going when things don't go your way. And maybe most importantly, it's in how you define it. Because if you let the world define success for you, you'll always feel like you're behind. But if you define it by your own values, by growth, by contribution, by integrity, you'll find that success isn't something you chase, it's something you become. Too many people think they'll feel whole once they achieve their goal, once they hit the income level, once the book is published, once the promotion is won. But they get there and something's missing. The moment is hollow because the journey wasn't rooted in purpose. It was just performance. And that's the real danger when we let our worth become tied to our results. We start building a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside. You've probably seen people like that. Always winning, always busy, always on, but there's no joy, no peace, no depth, because they've made success the destination instead of the side effect. But when you flip the script, when you decide to live by values, to serve others, to create things that matter, you still win, you still succeed. But that success doesn't own you, it doesn't define you, it follows you. There's something magnetic about people who are purpose-driven. They're clear, grounded, energized. They don't need to impress anyone. They don't need to manipulate or hustle or posture. They know who they are and why they're here. And because of that, people want to follow them. That's influence. That's leadership. That's real success. And here's the best part. When you make impact your focus, success becomes much more sustainable because it's not just about you anymore. It's about what you're building, who you're helping, and how you're growing in the process. That's what creates legacy, not what you achieve, but who you become and who you help others become along the way. So if you're chasing something right now, a dream, a position, a goal, ask yourself why. Ask yourself what's underneath it. Is it just about status, or is it about significance? Are you trying to look successful, or are you trying to be meaningful? Because there's a difference. One fades, the other lasts. Success is a byproduct of purpose, of service, of persistence, of showing up every day with a commitment to doing the right thing, the hard thing, the meaningful thing. And when you do that, when you pour your heart into something bigger than yourself, you won't just succeed, you'll matter. And that's the kind of success worth chasing.